story. Vice President Kamala Harris made her first official visit to the U.S.-Mexico border Friday in El Paso as part of her role in addressing the root causes of migration to the southern border. El Paso also happens to be where Donald Trump's family separation policy began in 2017. The vice president's trip came just days before Donald Trump is set to visit the border and after weeks of right-wing critics insisting she should have gone sooner.
Where is the border czar? Where is Kamala Harris? Just because they are trying to ignore it in the Biden-Harris administration does not mean the problem is solved.
She was named as border czar in charge of the border crisis, and she demonstrated strong leadership by doing not a damn thing, by going nowhere near the border, by doing everything she could to hide from the crisis.
Why is the vice president visiting the border this week when earlier this month she dismissed a trip like that, saying it would be a grand gesture?
Joining me now is Symone Sanders, senior advisor and chief spokesperson for Vice President Kamala Harris. Symone, thank you very much for coming back to the Sunday Show.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan. And before we get started, I just want to say our hearts go out to the families of those who have lost loved ones and who are still waiting to hear about loved ones in Surfside, Florida. And much gratitude to the first responders and everyone on the ground. Administrator Criswell, you saw her in that press conference, FEMA administrator, and the administration, the president and vice president are committed to doing everything they can to make sure Surfside has the resources they need.
And I'm sure the families there in Surfside appreciate the words that you've said. Symone, as we showed in the opening montage, you had a series of Republicans, elected and not elected, calling the vice president the quote unquote border czar. Respond to that.
Well, I have no response to those Republicans, Jonathan, but I can tell you this. The Biden-Harris administration inherited a gutted immigration system. Families are being separated. There was not a humane policy in place. And since the president and vice president took office in January, they have really focused on rebuilding that system, putting in place a fair, orderly, and humane system, building back up processes. The vice president was tasked with has taken on the leadership role of diplomatic efforts with Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, and with Mexico to really address the root causes of migration. That's why her first trip was to Guatemala and Mexico. And on Friday, she went to El Paso to visit the U.S.-Mexico border as a continuation of that work to see the effect of migration to the U.S.-Mexico border. So it's comprehensive work, Jonathan. It's not going to be fixed overnight. But on that trip, she was accompanied by DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, as well as Chairman Durbin and Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, who is the congresswoman from that district in El Paso, to see the progress that DHS has been making, but also see the work that is still yet to be done. So very productive and informative trip.
And Symone, not only is the vice president getting criticism from the right, but she's also getting criticism from the left, from particular members of Congress saying, well, she didn't go to the right place on the border. Your response to that?
Well, Jonathan, look, and the vice president spoke to this on Friday, as did DHS Secretary Mayorkas. El Paso is representative of the broader border communities. It is representative, is one of the busiest places at the border and truly representative of what is happening. There are 3 ports in El Paso. One of those ports, Paso del Norte, a port of entry, is a port that Vice President Harris went to visit directly at the border to see what is happening. She met and was briefed from officials and agents there and saw the rooms where folks are processed for asylum. She also went to visit the CPC in El Paso, Central Processing Center, to see the work of CBP agents, to see the progress that has been made. She was briefed on the technological advancements. So I would just argue that El Paso is truly representative of what's happening, not to mention, as you said in your opening, it is the birthplace of the former administration's family separation policy and the Remain in Mexico policy from the Trump administration. So El Paso can tell a rich story and is important to the progress that the administration has made on the border.
Simone, one more question for you, switching gears, and that is voting rights. That's yet another task that the vice president has. After the For the People Act failed in the Senate, I saw you in the background behind the vice president when she told the press corps that the fight's not over, that this is just the beginning. What's coming next?
Well, Jonathan, two things. First of all, the president and vice president are committed to continuing to push for federal legislation. The For the People Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, they believe it needs to be passed. This is about protecting the fundamental right of Americans to vote, the access to that right, as you heard the vice president say in the aftermath of the failing of just to have the conversation about the bill on the floor, because that's what was happening in Congress. But in addition to continuing to push for federal legislation, the president and vice president are committed to really using the bully pulpit of the White House to build a broad coalition of elected officials, advocates, activists, practitioners, folks in the private sector. Vice President Harris has convened a number of these individuals already. The day after you saw her on the Hill, she had convened advocates and activists, telling them that the fight continues, uplifting the work that they are doing, and also shining a spotlight on what's happening across the state. So this is long work. I know that you will hear more from the president on this in the coming weeks as Vice President Harris. The administration is committed to this. The president and vice president have committed their careers to fighting for civil rights, and this is an extension of that work.
Oh, I got one more question about the filibuster, but we are out of time, especially because of the press conference out of Florida. So you got saved on that one, Simone. Simone Sanders, chief spokesperson for the Vice President of the United States. Thank you very much for coming back to the Sunday Show.